Well, good day to you all. Welcome to Rooster's Fixing Things That Shouldn't Be Fixed channel. If you remember the last time on the GTX, we had some pretty severe case damage. I did a little bit of shopping on the interwebs. I ended up coming up with some pretty decent parts for a pretty decent price. So we're going to put this GTX back together again. Stay tuned. So to this point, I've stripped down all the used parts that I got, and I stripped down my old engine and cleaned everything up best as I can. I'm going to show you these cases. Real nice. Came off of a freshwater boat. Super clean. Also have a new counterbalance shaft with good bearings on it. Also got a piston and cylinder for the air compressor. Now one might ask why a jet ski needs an air compressor. And it's simple. If your tire goes flat on your trailer, you can just pump it right up. That's not entirely true. In fact, it's not true at all. The reason that they have an air compressor on here, main reason, is because this is a direct injection boat. Okay, it's not like your car or your four-stroke motorcycle where there's no pressure in the combustion chamber when the fuel is squirted in. Unfortunately, with a two-stroke, the piston is already compressing. So a lot of times the PSI output of the fuel pump is not enough to overcome the pressure inside the cylinder. So what they do is, and it's very specific on these DIs, the fuel pump is regulated to 27 psi, and the way you can check that is put your fuel pressure gauge, just stick your key in, the pump will run for a second, should come right up to 27 psi. That's regulated through the rail. Now on the other side of this is this air compressor, and this is regulated to 80 psi. So with this thing running, the total pressure on your rail will be 107 psi. Right about there it should be. If it's off from that, you have an issue. But that's the main reason, to overcome the cylinder combustion pressures to inject the fuel on a two-cycle direct injected engine. The crankshaft is in really good shape. Bearings are in really good shape. Connecting rods are in really good shape. Not too bad there. So clean this up real good, re-oiled it, get that ready to go back in. We'll put new outer seals on it. The cylinders, decent shape. They do have a little bit of wear. Still within spec. So we will reuse those. I did a light hone on the cylinder, very light hone on the cylinder. I'm going to go ahead and reuse these pistons. They're actually in pretty decent shape and they're standard size. Do have a little bit of wear to them, but like I said, the compression on this thing was like 125 when we took it apart. Now I am going to replace the rings, and the reason being is the top ring on this one is fine. Second ring down. And when you pull it off, I'm not sure if you can see that, but she's wonky. I'm going to make sure these pins sit down in these notches where they belong. Any shims you might have, and all of the seals have grooves that they sit in. We'll just make sure that they're all in those spots. Once our crank is in, We'll go ahead and put our counterbalance shaft in. Now we actually have to line up a couple of marks here. One of the marks is clearly visible on the counterbalance shaft. On the crankshaft, not so much. I'm going to try and stick the camera in and see if I can show it to you. I marked it with black marker so I'd be able to see it a little easier. With my old eyes, I had to use a jeweler's loop, so that's what you're looking through. The mark is actually pretty deep down inside on that crankshaft gear. So there's our mark on our counterbalancer, lined up with our crankshaft mark, and then when you turn them to mesh them, they'll be lined right up with the case. Tough to see. This is the proper positioning of the crankshaft and counterbalancer lined up where all the seals go. Now what we need to do is put some oil in here. This is a sealed chamber, so we are going to put, Sea-Doo says they want their jet pump oil or just standard gear oil, so we're going to use some 75 W90 gear oil in here. It's 1.35 ounces. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that exact, but I'll get pretty close. Next, I'm going to go ahead and install the piston and sleeve. I've already installed the piston into the sleeve to make it easier, and we'll slide it up inside. Now, critical step here is this pin, and it might look flat on both ends, but one side has a very small bevel, and that side has to go in towards the counterweight. So a way to check to see which end you have, because it's difficult to see, is using like a flat edge, straight edge. You're probably not going to be able to see this, but you'll see a little bit of a gap on one side and not on the other side. So this is our beveled end. Probably very difficult to see because it's difficult to see even with my glasses in person. So, but this has to go facing in, and we do not use any Loctite on this. I believe it's 56 inch-pounds as your tightening specifications. What we need to do is put our silicone sealer RTV on this side of the case, and then we can get them assembled. Now that I've just run them all down slightly, I have to torque them all in the specific pattern to keep from warping anything. I'll try to throw that up on the screen. It's having you make 2 passes, 1 to 9 foot-pounds. It's like 106 inch-pounds. Second pass, go back around and do 20 foot-pounds on all of them. Make sure your woodruff key didn't fall out. When you're ready to put the stator cover back on, don't forget this little plastic drive gear. This runs the oil pump. The arrow on the piston has to face the exhaust side, which is the same as the intake side. I'm going to put a rag in the crankcase in case we end up dropping the circlip. It doesn't go down inside the crankcase, and we got to try to fish it out and not be happy. It's critical to make sure this is snapped completely in. All the way around. Oil these cylinders up good so we don't get a dry start. Probably gonna smoke like crazy, but it's all good. My cylinder bolts, I'm going to run them down super light with the impact driver. No tension whatsoever, just to take up the slack on the bolt. Now we'll torque these in the correct sequence to 30 foot-pounds. Make sure these holes line up in your gasket, because this can actually go either way. We'll follow the pattern on this, 20 foot-pounds, then go back over them and do 30. Alright, so after 12 hours of install, I found where 4 of the 649 hoses and lines went. So hopefully that'll be enough to get this thing going. These jet skis are just not my forte. I'm just too big to be contorting in and out to get to where all these lines and hoses go. And some of Sea-Doo's information in the book is extremely vague. In fact, I have one line that I have no idea where it goes. This is actually coming off the solenoid, and it just goes to the back. And in the book, it basically just shows a hose with a down arrow. Doesn't show where it goes anywhere. If any guys out there know where that goes, hit me up in the comments and let me know. Otherwise, it's just gonna hang out. Now, of course, I gotta put a couple more things back together, like trim and things like that, but I want to see if it'll start first. Now, I did crank it with the spark plugs disconnected and the throttle held wide open to pressurize the oil system. So now we're going to go ahead and see if this thing will actually start, or it's going to make noise, or I'm going to blow it up. Now it's an absolute filthy mess, but that should come off. We got the beeps. Well, as it turns out, it's running again. Actually sounds pretty good. I'm not gonna run it too long. I gotta get it on a hose. I'll just get it buttoned up now and take this thing down to the lake and test ride it. Make sure it's all good. She actually moves under her own power. Boat doesn't fill with water. We'll see. All the hopeful things that you want to happen. So anyway, thanks for watching. Probably won't see too many jet skis on here because I loathe them. Loathe them. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you on the next adventure. Why do I do this to myself?